A very good morning to all the viewers and the webinar team. This is A. Ramprasad, Principal, Telangana Model School, Ramachandrapuram, Sangareddy District. While continuing our webinar sessions for various subjects, I would like to introduce Mr. Muhammad Hafiz, Postgraduate Teacher in Political Science from Telangana Model School, Ganmukla, Veenavanka Mandal, Karimnagar District. He is a postgraduate in Political Science from Osman University and holds a BA degree. He has a vast experience in various education institutions and is presently postgraduate teacher in political science at Telangana Model School, Ganmukla. He has a wonderful track record, and he was adjudged as the best teacher at district level in 2018. His efforts are appreciated by all his colleagues and his principal. To my knowledge, he's the backbone of the institution at Karimnagar district. Over to Mr. Hafiz for conducting a session on smart governance part 2.
Thank you, sir. Thank you to our subject coordinator Ramprasad Garu, and thank you Shailaja Madam Garu and webinar team, and thank you to all of you, and very good morning to all of you. Good morning to our webinar team and our subject coordinator Ramprasad Garu, and also good morning to all the principals of model schools and all the staff members of model schools and wonderful students of model schools. Good morning once again to all of you. Today we are going to continue our lesson from yesterday. Yesterday we learned in the part 1, and then today we are going to learn about the part 2 of smart governance as a part of our political science lessons. Okay, so today we are going to learn about the smart governance part 2. Okay, you know my name, so I'm no need to introduce myself once again to you. Okay, now we are going to start the lesson. Okay, let us start the lesson. Smart governance part 2, and the topics to be covered today means in our today's sessions: e-governance, Right to Information Act 2005. So I think everyone is familiar with this. You know about the Right to Information Act 2005 and Lokpal and Lok Ayukta Act 2013. I think it is a new for you children. Is it or not? Okay. So today we are going to learn about the e-governance, Right to Information Act 2005 and Lokpal and Lok Ayukta Act 2013. Okay, children. Now I'm going to move to the next slide. Okay, review. Yesterday what we learned. Yesterday we learned about the smart governance, meaning of governance, stakeholders in governance, components of smart governance, and good governance. So in yesterday's session, in our yesterday's, that is in our previous class, we learn about the concept of smart governance, meaning of governance, stakeholders in governance, components of smart governance, and good governance. And now in the today's session, we are going to learn about the e-governance. E-governance means electronic governance. So totally the process which takes place in the e-governance is runs through the electronic system with the help of technology. So e-governance process is nothing but electronic governance, and also it may be called as a paperless governance. So in the electronic governance, paper usage is minimized. So paper will not be used. Okay, children. In electronic governance system, that is in the e-governance system, it is called as a paperless governance because here the paper usage is minimized, or simply we can say that paper will not be used. Total process of the governance running through the electronic machines with the help of technology. Whatever may be the files, whatever may be the processes which are going. Okay, example like your intermediate admissions, there is no paperwork, only we are taking your xerox and updating in online system. Is it or not, children? So like that, so it is called as a paperless governance. And the government functions on the basis of utilization of information and technology. So government completely working in the e-governance by the utilizing the information technology. With the help of this, with the help of the information technology, e-governance will possible, and government using it maximum level about the information and technology. Okay, you can see that how it is sharing the procedures in the e-governance process from one to another. Okay, so suppose the one clerk is typing the one matter about the one file and sending to next one. It is moving from one to there like that. In e-governance process, it is completely through the technology, with the running through the or working through the technological system. Okay, so completely technology will use, like our webinar classes. You are listening the classes through the technology. Is it or not, children? You are using the mobile phones, and we are using the computers and the laptops. Okay, so through this we are reaching to you, to teaching the lessons to you. Okay, so in the same way, in the electronic system, every process is running through the network. Okay, children, that is the technological information. So the technology we are using that. So through the network we are using it. Okay, children, and in the e-governance process, internet using. Internet is must. Internet is used here. Okay, so information and technology enhances efficiency and effectiveness of services. So information and technology both are helping us in the increasing the efficiency and effectiveness of services. So here in the e-governance, we are using the internet and web-based telecommunication technologies. So in the e-governance process, we are using the internet and web-based telecommunication technologies. Through this, we are running our webinar class. Is it or not, children? So you are able to listening this. You are able to listening this lesson with the help of internet and telecommunication, with the help and telecommunication. So these technologies are using in the e-governance process. Completely internet and web-based telecommunications are technologies using, telecommunication technologies are using in the e-governance process. Okay, children. And here you can see that in the e-governance, first we are using the technology, then we are using the resources. You can see here, from here it is technology, here it is a technology using, then resources. You can see here, the people are working together. Okay, resources. And then in this blue color, you can see that is a process. Process is going on. And finally, in last blue color, it is reaching to the people, reaching to the people. So in the e-governance process, technology resources we are using and doing the process, and then finally the people. So it is very accurate one. This process, e-governance process, is accurate one. Accuracy will be there. Okay, accuracy, speed and accuracy will be there. Okay, these are the wonderful features of e-governance. Speed and accuracy. File processing. Suppose example, your income certificates and caste certificates, you are applying in the MeSeva. Is it or not, children? You are applying in the MeSeva, and this is totally, it is happening through the e-governance. You no need to go to the MRO office. You no need to submit the hard copies. Is it or not? Nowadays process are changed, I think so. But generally we have to apply in the MeSeva, and process will be go on. So there will be in the e-governance process, there will be speed and accuracy. These are the wonderful features. And here the people who are going to enjoy the services are groups, institutions, citizens enjoy the quality and continuous services. Okay, children. So here in the e-governance process, group of peoples or institutions in the various levels, okay, and citizens, we people, is it or not, enjoy a quality and continuous service easily accessible to us. So e-governance is easily accessible to the people. That's why it is now become the very famous, children. And here some definitions are given, and wonderful our former president of India, Dr. APJ, is given the wonderful definition here. Okay, and he's saying that a transparent, smart e-governance with a seamless access, secure, and authentic flow of information, crossing the interdepartmental barrier and providing a fair and unbiased service to all the citizens. See that our wonderful former president, how he is defined. He is saying that it is secure one, it is accessible to one, authentic, It is giving the authentic flow of information. Okay, crossing the interdepartmental barriers from one department to another department. Actually, generally in the paper usage, file move from the one department to another department. Example, if suppose papers we are submitting, MRO, then RDO, suppose if any papers, and then collector. But here, through the computer internet, through the computer internet, through the technology, these are crossing the interdepartmental barriers. File automatically we can send by type and send, then it is go to the RDO, then that is the rural development officer, then it is go to the collector, very easy. From the RDO it is going to collector. So like that, he's saying that interdepartmental barrier and providing a fair and unbiased service to all the citizens. Here process is there, that process I will explain the next slide to you. Okay, this definition is given by the Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam, former president of India. And one more definition is there. It is given by the UNESCO, one of the agency of United Nations organizations, that is ENO. Okay, children. So UNESCO is saying that e-governance is the public sector's use of information and communication technology. So UNESCO is describing that e-governance is public sector use of information and communication technology, the aim of improving the information and service delivery. So improving the information, it is reachable to people very speedily, very fastly. Okay, and also service is available to the people at the speed, one of the speed level compared to the paperwork, okay, and encouraging citizens participation in the decision making process. So encouraging the citizens participation in the decision making process for the various schemes. Example, if a gram panchayat, there is a Grama Sabha will be there. Is it or not, children? Grama Sabha meeting will be conducted. In that, the decision will be taken regarding the village, development activities, So here, e-governance is helping to the citizens to participate in the decision-making process and making the government more accountable, more transparent, and more effective. So UNESCO is saying that e-governance is making the government more accountable, because once the matter is typed and sent to the next higher level, it cannot be changed at the lower level. So it means it cannot be manipulated. Children. It cannot be manipulated. Okay, children. So it is accountable, transparent. It is also again cannot be manipulated, and it is further once it continues goes on. Okay, and very effective one. Within a short period, the file will be reaches to the highest stage and get the assent. The assent means get the signature. Okay, children, get the signature. So the government will become the more accountable, transparent, and effective. This is the process of e-governance. This wonderful definition was given by the UNESCO. Okay, that is the agency of the United Nations organization. Okay, and models of e-governance. So here 4 models are there of e-governance. Government to government, G2G. Okay, next one is government to business, G2B. Then government to consumers or citizens, G2C. Then government to enterprise or government to employees, G2E. These are the 4 models of e-governance. These are the 4 models of e-governance. Government to government, G2G. Okay, government to business, G2B. Government to consumer, G2C. Government to enterprise, G2E. Okay, so first one is government to government. Okay, so within the government, it is working, that is G2G, in the administration matters, intergovernment control and distribution and monitor. So in the administration process, e-governance will be used in the government activities, intergovernment control, because in the government there will be different organs are there. We know about the legislature, executive and judiciary. So within the intergovernment, the data, that is whatever may be in the form of files, will send to the one organ to another organ. Not only that, there will be the different departments in the governments, and also information will be shared. Information will be shared through the e-governance from one department to another department. That is intergovernmental control. So not only sharing and controlling on the information which is sending from the one department to another department. Okay. And also in control and distribution, then finally, whatever may the decisions taken, the final decision which is come out will be reaches to the people through the e-governance. So that is the distribution and monitor, and see that the government will see that it is reaches to the people. So it is in the process of government to government, G to G. Okay. Next one is government to business, G2B. Okay. Here, regarding the business tenders, generally development activities. Suppose if you take the your village, there will be the road constructions. Is it or not, children? Laying of the roads and construction of drainages and whatever will be the other activities which are takes place. It is through the tender process. It is taking place through the tender process, children. So tenders are called through the e-governance nowadays, using the modern technology and calling the tenders. Okay. And also even contract management also sending through the sorry sir, for the technological, with the help of technological system. Okay. So contract management act to the contractor through the e-governance process and policy enforcement. So whatever may be the policy, that papers also giving through the electronic process. Okay. Even tax standards and accountability, even collection of tax through the e-system. Okay. Nowadays you can see that we are using the machine to collect the taxes, and we are getting the paper. Otherwise, you can see the RTC bus conductor issuing the printed ticket nowadays with the help of machine. Like that, tax receipts also given. Tax receipts also giving to the people. Not only tax receipts, electricity bills also. Electricity bill receipt also giving through the machine. Is it or not, children? So like that, total taxes and other standard bills and all these giving that, and it is enhancing the accountability of the government in the form of business. And third one, government to consumers. Third one is government to consumers or citizens. So government to citizens, government services or reaching to the people through the e-governance system, So the services of the government informing to the people, or awareness is creating by the government through the e-governance. And also grievances. Grievances means our complaints, our problems. Suppose if you have a problem with the government at various levels, okay, maybe generally as agriculturists, we have the problems with the agriculture department, or maybe the land records department, or maybe the electricity department, like that. Our grievances also, we can complain through the e-governance. And also government will solve that through the e-governance again. And reply will also given to us through the e-governance. Okay. Right. And also other functional implementations of the government regarding to the welfare of the citizens. So whatever the government's functions are there, that functions also implementing through the e-governance process, and seeing to reachable to the people, all reaches to the people. Okay. And then fourth one, government to enterprise, and here document management, or government to employees, document management. The documents like example, your caste certificate, your income certificate, okay, which are even your studies regarding the memos also nowadays keeping in the websites. Is it or not, children? So like that, in offices, among the employees, they are keeping the documents, are storing in computer system, in the computer system, in the form of soft copy, in the form of soft copy. So document management will be very easy. If you take the paper we have to tie and keep in the file and store in the almaras. Is it or not, children? Or store in the safe place. But here in the e-governance, okay, document is storage is very easy, and whenever the government is required, it is easy to sending to the government from the offices and executive info systems. So executives information systems also be stored in the computers. Whenever we want, we can get within the seconds. Okay, children. So information we can get within the seconds from the one department to another department, or from the government to employees, or even government to the citizens. And also enterprise resource plannings. So plannings also can be done through the e-governance, and that plannings also can share with the people very easily. Planning also can share with the people very easily. So these are the 4 models of e-governance: government to government, government to business, government to consumers, government to enterprises. Okay, children? And merits of e-governance, advantages of e-governance. Okay, cost effective one. Okay, so paper cost will be reduced here. And also speed, efficiency, and convenient. Speed will increase. File processing move very easily, because as a clerk, suppose if I am the clerk, I type regarding your details for your caste certificate or income certificate, then it is goes to the next higher level than me, and then they can also see that and they can forward. So here paperwork will not be there, and speed will increase, efficiency, okay, and also convenient, very convenient one, easily processed, okay, and minimum use of hard copies, that you can see here. An X mark is there, that paperwork is minimized, paperwork is reducing. Okay, you can see there. Okay, paperwork is reducing, we are showing with the X mark. And also it is environmental bonus, we no need to cut the forests. Is it or not, children? Because from the forest, from the wood, we are making the paper. So here minimum use of hard copy. Hard copy only we may get the final stage. But in the throughout the process of that final copy, here we are taking totally soft work through the computers, through the technology, So it is very, very easy, convenient one, efficient one, speed one, and minimum use of hard copy. Paperwork is less, and it is helping the environmental bonus, children. Really, we are so lucky if you are following this e-governance. Okay, it is a following also. Yesterday I told that this system is following, already implemented in the Chhattisgarh state, and also increases interest of citizens, and also the citizens interest will increase to get their final orders, okay, their final information, and interest will increase, because the time is taking the very less, their work is going to be finished within a short period of span. So that's why interest of the people will increases, and easily accessible. Wherever we are, we can take that. Is it or not, children? Nowadays we are taking the photo and sending through the WhatsApp, whatever we required. Is it or not? And then we are getting, so through the e-governance, accessible very easily. And even whatever, suppose your caste income certificates, suppose if you are in Hyderabad, through the Mi-Sevas in Hyderabad, you can take that. Suppose you are in Hyderabad for your scholarship, you can go to Mi-Seva and you can give a thumb impression and you can get the scholarship. So e-governance easily accessible to all the people, okay. And also informing and consulting the citizens. So in giving the information to the citizens and consulting the citizens, whatever if the requirements are required, and reforming the process of governance. And in the course of time, in the developmental process, reforms will bring in the governance process. Every time the governments are seeing to enhance the facilities in the governance process by reforming, bringing the modification, bringing the changes, and access to information. Everyone can access to information. Suppose nowadays we are open the Google search, and whatever information we want we are getting. Is it or not? And simple rules to get the copies, to final copies, to print out. There is a simple rules are there to get that. And accountability. So e-governance is naturally, immediately causing for the accountability of the government. Accountability of the government. Okay, children. So these are the wonderful merits of e-governance and challenges of e-governance. Okay, children. So after the merits of e-governance, now there are the challenges of e-governance. Okay, technological challenges, organizational challenges, economical challenges. Okay, these are the three challenges. So interoperability of solutions, privacy, security, multi-service interaction, technological intensiveness, and obsolescence. Okay, children. So in the interoperability of solutions, because all the people are not able to operate, because in our India, most of the people are uneducated. We know about that. Okay, so due to that reason, it is operation is very important. Here, technical, that is a skill persons also are required. So to operate the technological systems. So this is the interoperable solutions of challenges is a big technical challenge. And privacy. So privacy may be somewhat not maintained in the e-governance. It has to be maintained. And then security has to be provided, children. Okay, so security of data, security of information is required. It is a big challenge for the e-governance. So even government and the governmental organizations which are in the process of e-governance, they are taking the steps. Okay, children, they are taking the steps to maintain the security, and also multi-service interaction, because it is a multi-service one, because multiple tasks has to perform at that time. Okay, so in the multiple task, it is a very big challenge for the technological operations, especially the technical persons. So multi-service interactions has to be enhanced. It is also one of the big challenge as a part of technical challenges in the e-governance. And also technological intensiveness. We know about that, how many people are able to use it. Okay, so this also technological intensiveness also has to be enhanced. And these are the some technical challenges are facing by the e-governance process. Next one is the organizational challenges. So within the organizations, within maybe in the government, or maybe if you take any private organizations, there are the some lack of integrated services. Okay, these are essential. Integrated services are essential. There is a lack of integrated services, because if you take the one organization, there will be the various departments. There is integration is required. Okay, if you take the government, we know about the government is very vast one. Is it or not? Very vast organization, and here integration is very important. And this problem is there in the e-governance. And also strategic control of government. So strategies maintenance system is required of the government to control to control the challenges of e-governance. And also lack of key persons. So that is technical persons or skilled persons. They are also required, and there is a lot of shortage of the technical persons. So key persons are not available properly. Okay, so that is also big organizational challenge. And then next one is population, children. Okay, so population is a very vital. This participation is very important. So the government has to be provide the facilities as per the needs of population, and the different languages. we are the people of India in our day-to-day life. As per my knowledge, 1,652 languages are using. So communication of this e-governance should be in the regional languages, and it is a big challenge, but government is working on that also. And exit management, after finishing, without the hindrances, without the obstacles, or without the problems, whatever the grievances or applications we are submitting, it should be stored in the database system. Okay, these are the organizational challenges and economical challenges. So it is a very costly one. It is very costly one because require the lot of money, require the lot of money here. So because to purchase the equipments, is it or not, children? Equipments, network systems, yeah, okay, even internet, everything has to be purchased. So it is a very big economical challenge. And also maintainability, not only installation of the instruments like a computers, whatever it may be, okay, which are using the technological systems in the e-governance process. Maintenance is also very important, and maintenance is also very big challenge because these are the technical involved in the technological one. So problems may arise immediately, they have to attend, they have to solve. So maintainability is required. And reusability, the data, the instrument should be has to be reused once uh, uh, in a continuous process. So it is also a very big challenge, reusability. And also portability, make to available to all the people. Okay, it requires a lot of money also here. These are the sub economical challenges: cost, maintainability, reusability, and portability. So technical challenges, organizational challenges, and economical challenges, these are the challenges facing in the e-governance process. And the factors required for success of e-governance. Factors required for the success of e-governance: adequate infrastructure, sound policy and legal framework, public-private partnership, and political and administrative leadership, and role of civil society. So adequate infrastructure is required. Okay, because the whatever may be the files are we are processing, whatever may be the activities we are processing in the e-governance, infrastructure is facilities required. One slide, one picture is showing to here, one image is showing about that infrastructure facility which is showing to you. Okay, so like that. And sound policy, policy program should be sound, means not making the sounds here. Sound policy means good policy. Okay, wonderful policy, there should be no problems will arise in the continuous process. And legal framework, law, as per the laws, rules and regulations should be has to be prepared in the e-governance process, because the people should not challenge in the court of law. Okay, and legal problems should not be arise. Okay, and also there should be public private partnership also required. Public private partnership also required in the e-governance process. It is very essential for the success of e-governance. And also there should be administrative leadership, especially political and administrative leadership is required for the success of e-governance. And role of society, we people should play a wonderful key role in the success of e-governance. Otherwise e-governance cannot be functioned properly. So means we as the people, as the citizens, because a part of society, we have to utilize these e-governance facilities properly. Okay, these are the some factors which are for the success for the e-governance. Okay, and in our Telangana government taken the some initiatives. Okay, taken the some initiatives for the provide the e-governance services to the peoples. First one is citizen friendly services of transport, CFTS. Citizen friendly services transport is provided to us. Telangana Transport Online, RTA, Road Transport Transportation Authority, providing the some facilities like driving license or vehicle registrations. Okay, like permissions, whatever it may be, through the online system. Me Seva, we know about very well. In our village, there is a Me Seva. Services are there. Okay, there is a card, CARD, that is a computerized administration of registration department. Okay, it is used now, not using, but these are the some initiatives for of the e-governance is taken by the Telangana state government. Okay, and here you can see the citizen friendly services. And then Telangana transport department, you can say that Me Seva, you know very well. And then card, the card not using. Instead of card nowadays, Telangana government introduced the Dharani system. Introduced the Dharani e-governance process. Dharani e-governance process, that is Dharani registrations. So these are the some initiatives of the introduced by the Telangana state government, children. And now next one is wonderful topic, Right to Information Act. We are the people very familiar with this, I think so. Okay, otherwise you learn this Right to Information Act now, and it is a very important. It's a very important. Okay, because it is like a human fundamental right. The 6 fundamental rights are different. It is a human fundamental right. Right to Information Act 2005. Okay. So this Right to Information Act keeping the government accountable, and Right to Information Act introduced in 2005. Okay, so in the Right to Information Act received the presidential assent, that is a president agreement, president signature on the 15th June 2005, and then it is became the operational one, means enacted one from the October 2005. I will tell the date in the next slide also to you. Okay, so that's why I'm not telling the date to here, because it is there in the next slide. So it is become fully operational by October 2005, and this act applies to all the states and union territories of India, all the newly formed states also. Okay, you can see here. So Right to Information Act enacted by the Parliament of India. Okay, that is the legislature of India, prepared and passed the bill and enacted on the 15th June 2005 and assented on the 22nd June 2005. Okay, and then commenced, that is enforced from the 12th October 2005. And this Right to Information Act applies to the whole India, that is a territorial extent, applies to whole India, including Jammu and Kashmir, since the 5th August 2019, after the Article 370 revoked. Okay, children, after the abolition of the Article 370 on 5th August 2019, here onwards, this Right to Information Act also implementing in Jammu and Kashmir. Okay, children, and what is the Right to Information Act? Okay, if you want any government information, you have to apply by paying the 10 rupees. That is the cost is 10 rupees. Okay, so fundamental right, it is a fundamental right to, it is a human fundamental right to see the government records. To see the government records, we have to pay 10 rupees. Okay, through the form of challan, and within the 30 days, the official, the officer whom you are applying, they will give the information within the 30 days reply. If they are not able to give the reply in the 30 days, the Commissionerate of Right to Information Act, there is an officer, there is a government. Okay, penalty the 250 rupees per day on the officer who is not giving the information after the 30 days. It is the Right to Information Act. So we can use it to see the government records by applying the through the application of the cost of 10 rupees, and the information will be given to you within the 30 days. Otherwise, penalty will be imposed on the concerned officer. Okay, and provisions of the Right to Information Act already explained in the last slide also. Now also, Right to Information Act is a fundamental human right. So it is a fundamental human right to see the government records, and it includes the rights as well as the responsibilities. So Right to Information Act include the rights of the peoples and also include the responsibility of the peoples also at the same time. Okay, children, and Right to Information Act 2005 is continuing, and every person right to request the information from the government. So every person has the right, because it is a fundamental human right of the citizens. So every person's right is request to the information with the government on the government records, and it is the duty of government to provide the request information which is requested by the citizens, requested by the individuals, unless exempted for special reasons. So in the government, some government records are exempted from the Right to Information Act, that is the RTI Act. In short form, we are the people. We know about the Right to Information Act is a RTI Act. So some of the governmental departments or maybe the government organization are exempted from the RTI, that is the Right to Information Act. Otherwise, government has to provide the information within the 30 days, within the 30 days period. Otherwise, the penalty will be imposed. 250 rupees penalty will be imposed on the concerned authority. It means within the 30 days, the concerned authority whom you are applying for the records of the government or information of the government should be disclosed to you. Otherwise, penalty will be imposed. Okay. And computerization, digitalization of records for the dissemination of information. So records will be computerized and digitalization, and keep ready for to give the information. And the information will be given to the requested person who are requesting for the government records permission. So they can be due to the person in the form of printouts, okay, by taking the money, okay, per page 2 rupees, I think so. There is a Xerox copy money, okay, printouts, and in the form of floppies, soft copies, or even in the form of video casts, or maybe if possible in other electronic forms, because nowadays there are other so many electronic forms are there. So information will be provided to the person who is seeks to the information from the government, will be given in the form of printouts, floppies, video cast, and any other electronic forms. Okay. And the act recommends for the appointment of public information officer, PIO, for all the bodies which are comes under the RTI Act, authorities and governmental departments. So one officer will be appointed, means given the responsibility among the officers, that is a PIOs, public information officer, who will provide the information to the person who is seeking the or who is requesting for the information. Okay. And the PIO, personal information officer, is responsible for providing the information to all the citizens as requested by the individuals. And the RTI recommends for the appointment of one assistant public information officer, one public assistant information officer, APIO, okay, to receive the RTA appeals, RTA application, and send to the PIO, public information officer, and who is responsible to give the information to the individuals. Okay. And merits of Right to Information Act: citizens empowerment through the Right to Information Act. The people get the some power, some authority on the government through the Right to Information Act. And also Right to Information Act curtail the corruption, inefficiency, and misuse of power. So Right to Information Act stopped, okay, stopped the corruption among the government officials, inefficiency also, because maybe the people not working properly, they will also become the active, because within the 30 days they have to give the information. Okay. So inefficiency will be curtailed, and misuse of power, the power will not be misused. Okay. They will be accountable to the people, that is a government officer. Yesterday we learned that government officials, government servants will be accountable to the people, to the public service, is it or not? So misuse of power will not be takes place. And the right to know about the government and governance. So the people should know the government activities and the governance through the Right to Information Act. And also, if any officer, that is a concerned officer, who are not able to give the information in the specific period of the 30 days, he will be punished or penalized. That is, I told that penalty will be imposed, 250 rupees per day. Okay, if the information is not provided. So it leads the transparency and improvement of the services. So it is automatically Right to Information Act leads to the transparency and improvement of services. Okay. And the role of civil society groups in bringing the issue to the core. Okay. And a report, complaint, or demand on the status of, as well as the details of the time delays by the public. Report also will be get, complaint will be get, and then Right to Information Act as an enforceable act. So it is a enforceable act. We can go to the higher authority. If the concerned officer is not given the information, we can complain it. And demerits, lack of awareness by the citizens. Most of the citizens do not know about the Right to Information Act. and there is a delays and slow process because for 30 days is taking, so delay and slow process, and failure to implement the act due to the negligence of the officials. So sometimes the attack getting the fail because the negligence of the officials, maybe because of the petty issues. Even the people started to ask the small informations, it is not possible to give the small informations because it is a time consuming, and these are the some demerits. Okay, and measures to strengthen the RTA Act. Proactive disclosures to be made mandatory, so that act, um, act and information should be made the and mandatory, and first appeal should be the last one. So first and final appeal should be the last one, no need to go to the highest officers. And commissioners should be pro citizens. Okay, they should be pro citizens, and the courts have to be sensitized on the RTA issues. These are the some measures has to be taken. And also the appointment of commissioners to be transparent on the and based on consultation with the public. Okay, and also support the civil society groups on RTA issues. So the support of the civil society has to taken on the RTA issues. Only genuine cases may be considered, not all the cases. For everything, for like a petty issue, small issues, application should not be refused. Okay, and then Lokpal and Lok Ayukt Act 2013. Actually, the concept of ombudsman originated or introduced in the Sweden in the 1809, that is more than 2 centuries ago. Actually, ombudsman means official appointed to investigate individual complaints against maladministration of a public authority. So ombudsman means they're appointed the one committee, that is one official appointed organization. It investigates the complaints of the individuals, administration of the public authority, that is a government. Okay, and the precious meaning of the term ombudsman is as governing grievance officer. So precious meaning of the term ombudsman as grievance officer. Ombudsman means is a officer, grievance officer. So we can ask our complaints. In India, we termed this ombudsman as a Lokpal for central government, which means caretaker of people at central level, at the central level. So ombudsman in our India is called as a Lokpal, which means caretaker, people at the central level. Okay, and at the state level, this office, Lokpal office, is called as a Lok Ayukta. Okay, so at the central level, it is called as a Lokpal. At the state level, it is called as a Lok Ayukta. Okay, and the act provides for the establishment of a body of Lokpal and for the union government, and for the Lok Ayukta for the state is established in our constitution. Okay, and composition of Lokpal, there will be chairman. Okay, okay children, and there will be 8 other members. So one chairman and 8 other members. Out of the 8 members, 4 members from the judicial department, from the court department, and remaining 4 members who has the vast experience in anti-corruption, vigilance, and public administration. So then one chairman, 8 members, 4 is judicial members, and 4 other members who have the vast experience in the anti-corruption, vigilance, and public administration. Okay, and Lokpal has the power. This is the powers and functions of Lokpal. Lokpal has the power inquiry into any matter connected with the allegations of corruptions against. So Lokpal will inquire the matter about the allegations which are made against allegations of corruption made against the Prime Minister, Minister of Union, or union ministers, or individual minister. So Prime Minister, Union, Minister of Union, or any member of either house of parliament, that is the Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha, that is the MPs, and also any group A and group B officers. If any group A, group B officers allegated or made the allegations on corruption, then Lokpal will inquire, investigate. And also not only A and B officers, C and officers of the union government also. So the powers and functions of the Lokpal. Okay, Lokpal will inquire about the allegations which are made on the Prime Minister and Minister of Council, or maybe the members of parliament, or group A to D officers of the central government, and also any chairperson or member of any corporation of the government. Okay, so chairperson member of the corporation also will be investigated by the Lokpal if they are involving in any allegations, or any society or trust or body that receive the foreign contribution about 10 lakhs. So any trust or body which receive the foreign contribution, foreign funds from about 10 lakhs also will be investigated by the Lokpal. Okay, and President Lokpal, the President of India, appointed. I know that in every lesson we told that President is the authority. He will be made the appointments. Okay, and how will be made the appointments? I will explain to you. So President of India appointed the Justice Pinaki Chandra Ghosh as the first Lokpal chairperson and 8 other members on the 19th March 2019. So President of India, President of India, okay, President of India appointed the Justice Pinaki Chandra Ghosh as the first Lokpal chairman and other 8 members on the 19th March 2019. And minimum age of Lokpal should not less than be 45 years. The members who are become the Lokpal members, their minimum age should be above 45 years, not less than 45 years. Okay, and based on the recommendations of the first Administrative Reforms Commission, many state governments enacted legislation to constitute the Lokayukta. So the first Administrative Reforms Commission of the central government made the recommendations to the state government. Based on the recommendations of the first Administrative Reforms Commission, Lokayukta is constituted at the state levels by the different state governments. Okay, and why the Lokayukta is required? Lokayukta to investigate the allegations or grievances which are arising out of the conduct of public servants in utilizing the power and the administrative duties. So at the Lokayukta at the state level to investigate the allegations which are made against the public servants and also the officials who are working the government or who are misusing their power and administrative duties. Okay, and any citizen, any individual can file a specific allegation with the Lokayukta against any public servant for inquiry. Okay, about his misuse of the power. And the institution of Lokayukta was established in the Telangana on 20th December 2019. So in our Telangana, Lokayukta was established on 20th December 2019. That is a recently only, children, maybe almost 1 year is not over completed, but nearly 1 year, because today is 17th December 2020. So last year only Lokayukta is established in our India. Okay, in that way, Telangana became the 27th state in the formation of Lokayukta and Upa Lokayukta. So under the Lokayukta, there is a Upa Lokayukta also, children. Okay, and governor, okay, Srimati Tamil Sai Soundararajan appointed the Justice C.V. Ramul as a Lokayukta chairman. Okay, and Niranjan Rao as a Upa Lokayukta. Okay, and then governor is appointed them on the advice of the committee headed by the present Honorable Chief Minister Chandrasekhar Rao Garu. Okay, based on the this committee, governor appointed the this Lokayukta and Upa Lokayukta. Okay, and the term of his office of the Lokayukta and Upa Lokayukta is 5 years. Okay, and whatever we are going to learn in the lesson, children, in the summary we can see that right to act information provides for the citizens to demand the particulars of public programs. So particulars of public programs can be demanded through the Right to Information Act. It is a fundamental human right, and it to be ensure transparency and accountability in the governance process, and also it facilitated the e-governance for the advantage of the citizens. Okay, e-governance is big advantage to the citizens of the country. Okay, and also there is a social audit, and RTA Act 2005 offers us openness in the realization of the goals and good governance. So Right to Information Act and social audit make us openness and the realization of the goals of the governments and the good governance. Institutions like Lokpal and Lokayukta at the state level were constituted to inquiry about the corruptions at the various levels in the state. Okay, children, and time to answer, you can take the screenshot here and note down this question. Very first question is very important for an annual exam, March 2021. Okay, explain the powers and functions of the Lokpal. Okay, next question is what is the Right to Information Act? It is a 2 marks question, and also what is meant by Lok Ayukta? It is also 2 marks question. So these are the 3 questions very important. Out of this 3, 1 will be guaranteed in your annual question paper, children. So I hope that you are the people wonderfully understand the lesson. Okay, and in the future you will utilize the resources which we are learning the good governance and use the good governance. Okay, all the best, children. Thank you to our honorable additional director Satyana Reddy garu and joint director Rajiv garu and webinar team and host Shailaja madam garu and my wonderful principal Dr. Venugopal Reddy garu and also my subject coordinator Ram Prasad garu. Thank you to one and all. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Hafiz Garu. It was a wonderful session. This is not pertaining to exactly the subject only. Even every student needs it for being a good citizen. So they need to
Yes, sir.
learn about the privileges they have and the rights also they have. So thank you very much. So it was a wonderful session. Good luck.
Thank you, sir.